everyone. Welcome to Perrysburg Pulse Podcast. We're talking about all things Perrysburg. On the show with us today is Terry Acox, and she is a resident of lifelong resident of Perrysburg, and she's been following and got involved in the Perrysburg land use plan that includes the Perrysburg Heights. Just the controversy there about, the Heights residents weren't even involved in the first draft of it. There's a city council meeting coming up Tuesday. So Terry's here to kind of get us updated on what's going on. Hi, Terry. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, Andrew.
Good. Okay. So ahead of Tuesday, what's the latest?
Well, what I wanted to bring to you is that I'm concerned that a lot of people in the community aren't really as aware of the details of this as they might be. There have been a couple letters to the editor in the Messenger Journal about it.
Mm-hmm.
And there was an editorial in the Blade today saying, leave the Heights alone, that pertained to the meeting on Tuesday, when council will be determining which of the options that will be recommended by Mr. Walters, the zoning and planning administrator, they would like to pursue. They may not make a final decision, but they will be considering all of them. And one of the things that I was concerned about and why I wanted to share some updates was when we last spoke, I talked about my confusion about what the Planning and Zoning Committee was hearing, because I heard three possible recommendations at the end of the meeting. One, that as the committee members recommended, they would recommend that the Heights be excluded from the plan, which actually puts the Heights at greater danger of commercial and industrial development. Or that they would use Mr. Walters' compromise, or they would use the recommendation from the Heights residents, which is essentially three things. Keep the residential nature of the Heights so that if someone does ask to be annexed into the city, they can be annexed, but they wouldn't change the zoning to commercial. Another is to keep the commercial along 25 limited to what it is currently, so that the residential neighborhood continues. And then third, to correct any possible encroachments from the commercial development into people's private lands, which they suspect has occurred, and there needs to be a survey done to fix that. So I was real concerned when I saw on social media that Mr. Walters had three options to present, but one of them was the original land use plan, which I now understand may have been just so council could vote that down. Then his compromise plan. And then the third one was just...
Real quick, Terry, because they're saying that the first plan, which really was destroying 79 whole homes and putting up brand new stuff, that's not even a consideration. So we're hoping that they're keeping to their word on that, because that's... The second plan is the compromise plan. The third plan is the one that the Heights residents came up with.
Except, and what I was so concerned about was that what he wrote that he would be recommending as an option was just removing the Heights from the plan, so that he had not included the the Heights residents' recommendations. So I contacted him because I thought, well, certainly this is a mistake, because otherwise it would be a real betrayal of what had been said in the meeting on March 2nd. And so I emailed him and the committee members, council, mayor, and township, because it's all connected to each other. Right. And I didn't hear anything for a few days, so I contacted them again. And I did receive an email from him that they did confirm he would be providing the three options he said, plus if the Perrysburg Heights residents had something they wanted to recommend, essentially they could recommend that, is how I took his statement. So I believe that in the meeting on Tuesday, that the residents will have an opportunity to talk about what they want. although I have found that it's consistent. The letter to the editor last week in the Messenger Journal talks about the same three things as the Heights Heritage Committee has talked about and the Perrysburg Community Association has done, which is the three things: limit commercial development to what it is now, protect the residential nature in any future annexation, and correct any encroachments that there are now.
Because they're worried they're just going to keep buying houses. It's commercial creep that they're going to keep buying houses, then start annexing it in. So one row will get, in theory, just to visualize, one row will get annexed in. So the next row can get bought, then that can get annexed in because now it's adjacent, and keep going until the neighborhood is gone. And there it is. And then it's all commercial. We know how big Perrysburg is booming, and obviously that land is very popular, and land in general is very popular, and that whenever there's money involved, then you can have some nefarious operations going on.
Well, that's true, and that is particularly true if the decision by council is to remove the Heights from the land use plan at all, because
Right.
then
There's no protection.
Mhm. Now, what the zoning committee is currently saying is that they want to leave the Heights residential except for what's already commercial along 25. Plus, they want to move it into the Heights and make that in the land use plan a commercial designation with a road between the commercial designation and the current houses. The problem with that, although according to Mr. Walters and Mr. McCarthy, that they think that would meet good land use plans, and that the problem with that is this is a community that already exists, and that the very most heavily populated part of the Heights is exactly where they'd be expanding the commercial zone into, so that at least 20, if not 30 families would lose their homes eventually because of it becoming commercial zoning. And my understanding from the representatives of the Heights is that people want to keep their homes rather than sell it for commercial property. So even though the comments from the committee are that this is not to cause more commercialization in the Heights, it actually does increase the amount of commercial zoning, and it causes that number of families to lose the residential nature of the home eventually. Mr. McCarthy's common statement is then just don't sell. But the reality is, when you have a land use plan, that's what developers look at and say, well, this is what we can do. And so it's not as simple a matter as that. Mr. Walters did acknowledge during the meeting on March 2nd that could be harmful to some people. And so where I am is wondering about not only the fairness to the residents of the Heights, but whether our values in Perrysburg are supported by essentially saying, as Mr. McCarthy did in his letter to the editor, that their goal and the compromise is to have a good commercial district that reflects Levis Commons. And when I think in my values, when I think about the value of potentially displacing 20 to 30 homes so that the commercial district can be expanded in the Heights to reflect Levis Commons, I don't find that fits my values.
And the other thing, Terry, is there are a lot of empty commercial spaces already. Why don't we fill the ones that we have and leave the neighborhood alone? Is the council's position then to put that road to make a road dividing line between commercial and residential, and then lose those 20 to 30 houses. But then they're saying no more houses will go. We promise that's the dividing line. That's it. And then you're saying, yeah, but that 20 to 30, that's a big portion of the area that they're losing for commercial.
Yes, that's correct. You're correct. They're saying that would be the dividing line. Mm-hmm. On the other hand, when I think about the integrity of the process, one of the things that concerns me, and one of the things I responded to Mr. Walters with when he did answer my email, concerned about the length of time that this is taking, because in March there was an LLC that had purchased, I think, 19 parcels on the main road, like that goes right across from Levis Commons, that goes into the Heights, and they were in the process of annexing at that point. And the next step could be that they would ask for a change in zoning. And what I understood Mr. Walters to say was that it would be logical for the city to agree to zone it either commercial or industrial, because right across the street from the parcels that they bought are some industrial buildings and zoning, like their businesses that are industrial. But those 19 parcels would be what has been residential. So even though what we're talking about and what the committee is saying is that will be the end of commercial designation, what may be happening right now is that there's already some possibility of commercial encroachment into the residential area. And so one of the additional requests that the Heights Heritage Committee has made is that during this process, that no other zoning changes be made. And I agree with that. I think that if zoning changes are made during the process, which has now taken over a year, that's really not transparent, and that it is a kind of a situation of we're going to have the commercialization because it took so long to get through this process.
And knowing this is all going on, there should be a halt on that, on any changes until the decision is made. We're right in the middle of the process. Then if you're worried about, well, the process taking so long, let's speed the process up, or let's do something and not make any decisions until the decision is made.
I agree with you. And so because I think it's such a complex story, and
it is
get out in full, that's why I wanted to talk with you about it again. The meeting coming up on the 31st will be at least a first hearing for the general counsel. And it would be incredibly helpful for people who would like to support the Perrysburg Heights community and to have a fair treatment of them, as well as an open discussion to notify council of that.
And because the thing that's sad is that we know that if LLCs are buying 19 parcels of land, they have money. They're going to have a lot of sway. It's a lot of money versus people that don't have a lot of money. And unfortunately, as we know, in any level of this society, money is the ruler, unless the people step up and help and show some solidarity with these people that are going to be losing their home, losing their neighborhood, losing their heritage. And are we okay with that as a community?
That's exactly it.
So you want people to come to the meeting on Tuesday and show their support. There's no decision is going to be made Tuesday, right? They're going to present the plan officially, the plans.
My understanding is that they will present the options, particularly around Perrysburg Heights, officially. And it's probable, according to Mr. McCarthy, that the decision may not be made on the 31st, but I suppose that it's possible. I'm very aware that people don't have a lot of time in their personal lives, and they have a lot of stuff. Contacting by email their council members is fine. If you can't go to the meeting, then email them and just say, be fair, have an open discussion, do the right thing by the Heights. And everybody is available on the Perrysburg site. All you have to do is go to ci.perrysburg.oh.us, and you'll find, and the names will be there. And you can just email. You can do a group email. It won't take very long. And it will support the idea that Perrysburg really does value its members and fair treatment of who we are, all of us.
Right. And they actually are responsive. I know that I've sent emails before, and they have been pretty responsive. So if you can't make it out to the meeting, but you do want to show your support, that's a great way to do it. Just write a quick email and say, hey, these are my thoughts on it. So you have some more information going in. And so Tuesday they're going to present these plans, and then we'll see what happens after that. Hopefully they don't make the decision on Tuesday. They have some time for more input. You have to present the plan, let people digest it, and make sure that that's actually what they've been talking about is actually what they even say. It's gonna be interesting to see what the city council says on those plans as well, what their thoughts are on them. But it's a tough decision. It really is. Yeah, I see on Facebook just many of the residents just very passionate about not wanting to lose their community and fighting for their community. And I mean, it's heartbreaking. It really is.
Interesting thing. My daughter sent me. We watch a documentary every so often together, and recently saw one about Jane Jacobs, who back in the 60s and when urban renewal was going on, the idea was to make cities brand new and run the car routes right through the center of the city, which we now know was a terrible mistake. Jane Jacobs was talking about the importance of people and taking people into planning in developing. And she was very effective in helping stop some of the development that Robert Moses was leading, which decimated neighborhoods, and we're still paying the price in a lot of our cities for that plan. And so it was such a good reminder that what we think sometimes is a really good plan for development turns out not to be so good. And if we're not really listening for understanding and really thinking about what are the values of our town and what are the values that we have as people towards our neighbors, that we can make decisions about development, making everything look like Levis Commons, that in fact, we're going to regret later on. And the people in the Heights will regret right now.
Yeah, well, here's the problem too, is it's such, it's not a bumper sticker issue. It's so intricate. And so some people, like you said, their lives are busy and they don't have time to actually focus and dive in to exactly figure out what's going on. They have their own lives, they have their kids, they got work, they got everything to worry about. So unfortunately, the people that are focused on this are the ones that are directly affected, which are, they don't have a big voice. They don't have a lot of power against these people that their interest is, hey, I can make a lot of money off this thing. Let's push this through. And it's an age old story in this country, the little guy against the big guy. And that's really what it comes down to.
I agree. And the wisdom with which we think about growth and how we think of ourselves as a city and the people within it. I've seen an occasional comment about if it's good for Perrysburg, we should do it. But how do we find good? And how is it that we look at our neighbors and say, you bring a lot to our community, and how can we support you in that? Rather than how can we remake your community to look something like Levis Commons.
Yeah, and I mean, it's important to protect our people. I mean, these are our people, and I can't imagine being a resident there and having my future decided by others. Like you're not wanted. It's like you're in the middle of somewhere where you just feel not wanted. Even all this talk makes you feel not wanted. And that's just sad in on itself.
I've read many comments like that from residents, and I think that it is a very true and unfortunate outcome of what is happening. My hope is that there will be a positive outcome, that the council will determine that following the residents' wishes in terms of limiting commercial growth and maintaining the community is what they will choose. And that not only that, but as a community, the larger Perrysburg community will become more aware and more accepting of what we need to pay attention to as we grow.
Yeah, and the meeting is this Tuesday. Again, if you can't get out there and support in person, and you feel compelled, then send a quick email to your councilman on how you feel on this issue, so that your voice can be heard, whether you're there or not. And that's one thing that's nice about this being a small town. It is a small government, and they will listen, and they do get your emails. So let your voice be heard. It's very important. And man, Terry, we'll have you back on after the meeting and see how things go.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you for taking time. I appreciate it. That is Terry Acox, who's a concerned citizen following the Perrysburg Heights development plan. Thanks for listening, everybody. We appreciate it. And check back with us, of course. Like and follow the page, Perrysburg Pulse Podcast. I'm Andrew Z. Have a great evening. Bye, everybody.